My name is Cinga Samson. I'm a Cape Town-based artist. I'm a painter. Originally from the Eastern Cape, but over the last 17 years, I've been working, painting and practicing here in Cape Town. It's such an honor. It's such a moment that, as a young artist, to be shown at home is something that you be celebrated at home. You feel completely privileged. The title of the show is a very introspective title, which for me it kind of says, it kind of reminds me of all the times where I've seen artists like, growing up, artists like 𝘽𝙡𝙠 𝙒𝙚𝙦 𝙒𝙚𝙬𝙠 these are the artists that earlier on I was aspiring to work and to be as professional as they are. Now later on they are exhibited along with many other young artists of my time, and I find that very interesting because of I see myself looking in and seeing me earlier on till today. So that play for me is also interesting about the show itself. But it also, I kind of feel that it's a kind of theme that invites, when you say when we see ourselves, it kind of includes whoever is being spoken to also when we see ourselves. You know what I mean? It includes the other. So I also like that play within that show, when someone coming very innocently to the show to see it, when we see it, seeing the title outside, it kind of strike that for me very beautifully. But also, I think it's very important that it kind of reflects over the years the life of African artists and their descendants, African descendants artists as well. That it kind of shows over the years how they've been interacting with life, how they've been with life, and how they've been sharing their stories within time, and also to see the difference of those time. You can also pick up different politics of those time and different themes of each, and themes that were very strong and very necessarily on each time. So to see this show, when you see us, you also see that timeline, and I have a very personal take to it, and also I feel someone who is not necessarily African would have their own take to the show, because it does include them in a sense. Who influences my work? I'm more of a consumer of all artists. To some artists, I take a little bit of that. I find that interesting. I kind of notice that not all artists are good in all round. Others, just the way they understand the work, it's just stimulating that on its own. Even though visually it may not be the most stimulating work. So I realized that for me it's been important that in each and every artist I'm able to pick something that I really enjoy. Others, and I'm looking at artists like 𝙒𝙚𝙦 who I was saying to that, in my earlier years, he was such a huge conversation. And that was a huge influence, because we really wanted to meet that standard. We really wanted to be like him. So that was an incredible inspiration, very necessarily at that time. So many artists come with different gifts that I tend to enjoy. My work it's such a continuation of art that is very important, especially from the continent that also has managed to have an audience. That in that audience is that we can. I see myself having a chance to share some of the themes I'm really dealing with as an artist of this time. The works they come in a very religious sense, that they bring a world that seems to be distant, and that world makes us question ourselves. But at the same time, the themes that the work carries are themes that you can never answer them in using a figure. It doesn't seem natural to answer them in that sense. But like like most religious paintings, you realize that they use figures to answer questions of spirituality. Is that making sense? Or questions that are not just spiritual, questions that are about human being longing to understand his nature and why is he here? What is he or she? What's important? What should be those things? What should be the goal? And death, life. So the works kind of switches between that, presenting itself in it can feel like a ceremony at times. You can see one could think it's a ritual, but I more like see them as a religious works, which you can compare. Some of the scenes you can easily compare them with Christ being taken down from the cross. These are the religious paintings we know, but they also come in different forms, and I think my work brings that contribution in, or bring that theme, or those understandings within those type of paintings. So it's a very philosophical work. I guess if you're asking what can it contribute? It contributes in a sense of philosophy, or in conversations that are more philosophical. The way I've used figures in the work, I've used them in a way that it makes you not sure whether what you're looking at is a human being or not. And it also create a distance between you and the figure. And this is to perhaps to create a different world that you're not necessarily existing in, but a world that makes you question your own world, your own existence, your own understanding. And in a sense that is very intense, that you're not sure whether is this thing that you're looking at real or not. And that you can, that is created through just the energy of the work, the whole totality of the energy. That's the whole totality of the work. But the work is, it speaks about something slightly more complexer than just the figures in the work. The work talks on conversations that I, have with myself that I find very interesting, where I notice that some of the basic things that we're supposed to be knowing about ourselves, we don't really understand. Like I said earlier on, what are we? The components that really hold everything together, and our role as well, within that, what is our role? Some people, to answer those questions, they want to look up to God. So I think also the figures themselves, they also push you towards that, in a sense of it could make you, they could make you slightly uncomfortable, which is slightly less stable, less solid, which is, again, like I said, is to make you think and and question your aboutness. So the figures that I used to represent, those themes, but those themes, like I said, they're more philosophical and more religious than more literal, if that makes sense. And sometimes these gaps we have, you would think of somebody, and then that person will call you, and you will have a hint on something, and some people will say something told me not to step forward, and I did not, and I missed something that could have, whether it's a vehicle or something could have happened within that time. And these are the things that, they create a gap. There's a gap within our knowledge that it's hard to explain them, and we can easily call them coincidence. But I think the work also kind of hugs those themes and kind of pull them in, to create that conversation, and to really further our understanding about ourselves, which really also the show itself kind of, I feel also in me as an artist that is participating in it, I'm seeing that understanding being pushed, not just as a single voice, but as a more of a voice over time. You know what I mean? Like not as started with, because it might feel like that when you're an individual, but when you seeing that others before you and earlier, and you're also reminded of that, and you also see it in a more linear, then you start to understand. And artists from outside the continent that are have their African, they have African, I want to say blood, but I think it's correct when I say blood. They have African blood and then that African warmth to them.